All right, thank you very much for joining today's training. We will be doing time.net. Let me just go to the landing page when you actually open up time.net. So this will be recorded, and then afterwards you guys will just get the link that I'll just send to you, and then you can just view this online, etc. Please make sure that you download this video because it will be deleted after a few days. So please make sure that when you get this video, please download it as soon as possible. All right. So without further ado, when you log into the system by using the default login details for the first time, I think it should be admin lowercase. So username is admin, password is admin. And then you will be greeted with this little window over here. Okay, so at the top here, you will see a couple of shortcuts to the system, personnel, attendance, device, and then report. And then on the right-hand side, we have, if I click on the house icon over here, it will just show you some shortcuts, right? So this is the workflow that we are going to use. The cogwheel, you'll be able to do the licenses. So if I click on this, you'll see the license information, and then the user manual. This is what the question mark in a circle is, and then obviously the three icons that you're already familiar with if you're using Windows. Right at the bottom, we also have let me just move this to the top. At the bottom, we already have a few different icons as well. Each one just doing something else. So the first one is just, it shows your database as nice cards. And then the second one over here is a real-time monitoring that won't work now, but if you have a device added, they will be listed here on the top. If I can just close this little window. The report card, this is just a shortcut to the report cards. And then obviously statistics is just a shortcut to this window as well. Right, so this is just for information's purposes. Let's quickly go to the front, the dashboard again, by clicking on the ZKTeco at the top left. All right, just waiting for it to load. It's taking its time. All right, so at the top here, you will see how many people out of your database have a password or doesn't have any password, right? So as well as cards, fingerprints, facials, finger veins with palms, with employee photos, etc., etc. So if I just scroll to the right here, you'll see that this is indeed everything. All right, so at the bottom here, you'll also see a nice little pie chart displaying how many people are absent or present inside of your database. So today, no one clocked in, so therefore everyone is absent. And then you'll just see here over the last few days, there was one guy that was absent over here, another guy was absent. Okay. So let's actually start this. This thing is getting in the way. Let's click on this to see the workflow that we need to use, right? So the first thing you need to do when setting up your software, I will be going over the other things in a moment, but the first thing what you need to do if you want to set up your software is to create a company, right? So this is where you'll put in your information about your company, right? You'll put in a name, very important, and then the rest of the information you can just follow suit. And then also, if you would like a logo on your reports at the end, then you'll just add a logo here. This is the pixels dimensions of that logo that you need to have on this, right? And then also, do you want this to show in the report? Yes or no?
That's one I called back.
Let's just quickly go here. The next thing here we want to do is add some employees. All right, so on this employees over here, you will see your employee list on the left-hand side, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4 that I've already added. If you want to add a new employee from the software side, I will be showing you that as well. And then I'll also be explaining, let's say, for example, you already have your employees on the device and you want to pull that information through on the device. So the first method, if you do not have the device yet and you want to add the people to your software, you'll just click on add here. Then this window will clear of all the information that it's already had. Over here, you'll put in a ID, very important. Do not start with zeros. Okay, so don't do anything like this. And also no letters and mixed with numbers. Okay, so you'll start with number 1 and then go up from there, because some of our devices don't work well with the zeros in the front. So you'll start with 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's go on to that, 5. And the next one here, I'm just going to say A, right? That's the first name. Very important to put in a first name, because otherwise you will forget who is number 5 on your system, right? Where does this person work? Do they work in a support, training, sales, etc.? In the beginning, you will not have a department to choose from. So you'll first have to create departments if you want to select a different department. But for me, I've already created some departments. So I'm just going to select one here. Let's say, for example, sales. Number A works in sales. When was he hired? He was hired today, or let's say the 1st of this month, and just leave the salary mode as is. Don't go to wage mode, right? So very important, stay on salary mode. Otherwise, your reports won't display correctly. Then the area is important. This is a way of telling your employees where they can clock in or out, right? So if you select training room, then they can't clock in on the boardroom or the other one over here. So you will need to select the correct one. Okay, so if you just select the training room, then your devices allocated to the other areas, you will not be able to clock in or out on those areas. So if you want someone to be able to clock in training room as well as boardroom, then you'll just select both of them. Okay. The device privilege. Over here, you can select what this person can actually do on your devices. If they are employees, then they cannot go into the menu of the device. So employees can't do anything on the device except clock in and clock out. Enrollers, what can enrollers do? They can only enroll new users on the device. Okay, so they can add new people, but they cannot go into the IP settings, etc., etc. The manager as well as the administrator can go into the IP settings, change the IP configurations, etc., etc. So they are basically at the top of the food chain, right? So very important. If you do not have a manager or a administrator on the device, then anyone can go into the menu of that device. Okay, so very important. Please make sure that you have one administrator at least on a device. Position, this is not really important, but you can just select any position there. That's the same as the department. At the bottom, you will see that there is something called PIN. This is the password that they'll use on the device if they want to clock in and out. For example, let's say, for example, your device has a PIN, a keypad, then they can put in their PIN as a method of clocking in and out. So if you put in here 3 ones, then they can use 3 ones on the device to clock in or out. A card number, if you have a card enrollment reader, you can just plug that in and then just place the card on the enrollment reader, and then it will just automatically update with your card number. Alternatively, if you know the card number of your card, then you can just type that in there, and then that will also work. Okay, you will also be able to add fingerprints on this on your profile by clicking on this fingerprint, and then a little window will open up. You have the option of either enrolling on a device. If you select it on the terminal, you'll be able to select a device from the drop down. So let's say, for example, you already have the device added, and you'll just be able to choose the device from the drop down over here. So after you've chosen the device, you'll just click on this cord to make it connect. Unfortunately, I do not have a device added yet, so I won't be able to connect this device. But once you've selected it, please make sure that you click on connect, and then you can just select on a finger, and then you can enroll on your fingerprint. Very important, when you enroll a fingerprint, please make sure that that fingerprint is in the middle of that square. Okay, so because otherwise, if you do not enroll your fingerprint correctly, then you'll have problems once you want to clock in or out. Your device will struggle to recognize you. So please make sure that the swirl or the swivel should be in the center of that little sensor. Right. Otherwise, if you have a fingerprint enrollment reader, it's a little sensor that you plug into your PC. You'll just be able to select a fingerprint. Unfortunately, I do not have one plugged in at the moment, but in your case, if you had one, you can just select a fingerprint and then enroll it on your PC side. Okay, so once again, just on this, if you want to do the terminal on a device, for example, please make sure that that person is already at the device. If they're not there, when you click enroll, then they will have to go back to the device because there's a time limit on this device or on this enrollment. Okay, so if they do not enroll within a certain amount of time, then you'll have that state will then expire. Then you'll just have to do it again. Okay, so that just to spare yourself some trouble, just make sure that that employee is already at the device at that time. The profile photo size, this is just a profile picture. It can be anything as long as it is 200 by 200 pixels and nothing really major over there. And then a private detail, just something that you can maybe have a look at. Right, so I'm just going to save this. And now we have a new employee that works in sales. His name is A, and there we go. Right, so let's quickly go to department. I will show you how to set up departments. On the left-hand side, you will see the hierarchical view of our company that we've already created. So underneath ZKTeco, we have 4 sub-departments: support, sales, repairs, and then marketing. Underneath support, we have 2 sub-departments as well as sales and then marketing. And then this is basically the structure of our company. We can add a new one over here. We can just say repairs, let's say internal repairs, or let's say external. There we go. And I'm going to select repairs here to make sure that this repairs, external repairs, falls underneath repairs. I'm just going to save this, and there we go. There we have our sub department. It's called external repairs, and I've just added it underneath repairs. Okay, so that is basically how you set up your hierarchy. You can always delete something, or you can just rename it very, very easily. Okay, so the same with positions. I've already created a few positions here: manager, team leader, employee, etc. So over here, let's add a new one here. I'm just going to say boss or CEO. And I'm going to say it's underneath ZKTeco. And I'm going to edit this one. Oh, wait, I can't edit this one. Why can't I edit this one? Oh, I think this one is already, yes, that's why. Okay, so the reason why I can't edit them is because there is already sub-departments or sub-positions already allocated to them. So I'm just going to move this to CEO. I'm going to save this. And I am going to, okay, so I think the reason for that is because I have some employees that are added to them as well. On this one over here, team leader, I'm going to move this to CEO, save. Pam Holpert, CEO, save. So this can get quite tricky if you've already added someone to something, right? Just going to move everyone to CEO. So you'll be able to move these. Oh, I think someone is still on those. Let's just leave this for now. Okay, so you'll see here, we have our hierarchy now. Let's go to the employee, and there we go. We just added some employees. Right, so if I just click back here, I just want to see on the system. All right, so on the system, you'll be able to set up some settings for your software. Please make sure that you do not select the payroll. Okay, so if you have payroll enabled, please make sure that you unenable that or deselect this, because even though we have payroll on the system, we do not integrate on the payroll systems in South Africa. Okay, so across the world we do, but in South Africa, unfortunately, we do not have this function. So even though it's there, please make sure that you do not select this. All right. Then obviously on the configurations, you'll be able to select what you want in the system. Right. So the first option we have here underneath basic settings is, do you want the device to delete the transactions each time after they download from the device? Obviously, you will not select this because there is a high risk in doing this, meaning that, let's say, for example, you select this and then you maybe you get the transactions from the device, and then unfortunately there was a connection break within that, and then your device doesn't have any transactions anymore because your system deleted it. All right, and therefore your system won't have it because there was a connection break. All right, so please make sure you do not select this. This will just safeguard your information. Then also on the date and format, you'll be able to select what you want your date and format to look like. Time format, duration format, you can just select what you'd like. So I chose the following over here. I used the slashes, then I chose hours and minutes, and then hours and minutes for the duration format as well. I selected the enable short message, and then email alert, USB, etc., etc. So I'll be going over that with you guys as well. Then obviously at the bottom, we use in South Africa, we use the Gregorian calendar, but if you're outside of South Africa, for example, you can choose the other calendars if you'd like. Let's go to the email settings. So if you did not select one of these options over here, for example, the email alert, then obviously you will not receive this email in your settings. Okay, so this is great. This is a great function. If you would like the software to send out SMSs or emails for, let's say, for example, if there was an employee that left early, or if someone came in late, or if someone is absent, right? So it'll send the following 3 reports to you if you have this set up correctly. So first, you will need an SMTP server. This you will receive from your ISP, right? So internet service provider. If you do not know anything about this, please make sure that you contact your internet service provider so they can assist you with getting an SMTP server set up. Right. So once you have done that and you have the information, you can just input this here. After you've done, you just click on the test connection. If it is successful, then obviously it will work. Okay. Once you're done, please click on save. And then this, let's go to the next one over here. You're also able to restrict certain people's access to the software, right? So let's say, for example, you have a receptionist and you only want her to pull reports, but you don't want her to change the employee's information or view that, anything like that. Then you can create a role for that person and then just set it up for her. Okay, so the receptionist, I have clicked on add here, for example. You can name it whatever you'd like. So just have a quick look over here, the difference between the administrator and the receptionist. So underneath administrator, whatever you have selected, then if this person logs in with the administrator user, for example, then they can see whatever or do whatever is selected, right? So if you have the receptionist here and you select delete, for example, role, then she can come into the role and just delete that role, for example. Okay. If you wanted to update information, that's the edit, for example, or select this role, then you'll have to select this. Otherwise, if you do not want her to see the role information, then you'll just not select that, right? So you can set up what you want this person to do. Maybe you just wanted to pull reports. She should be able to select, view. You don't want it to delete, for example, a report. So you'll just set it up over here. You can also give her a mark there. And then select the departments. So if you do not select the correct departments over here, the departments that are not selected, for example, in this scenario, this person will not be able to pull reports on anyone allocated in the support department. But if you have this selected, then they can pull reports on anyone in the support department. On the user, you'll be able to create new users for login. All right, so let me just click here, for example. I'll click on this add here. And let's create a login for this reception, right? So I'm just going to say REC, that's the username that she'll use, and she'll just use the same password over here. So let's say, for example, if you've created this now, then this person will be able to log in on this system, on the reception at ZKTeco, for example. This will be her email, for example, right? And I'll just select the correct role. And then this person with the receptionist login details will then, if she logs in with reception, then they will only see the the things that the role of reception can see. Okay, so you'll see here underneath, if I click on this reception here, she can only do the reports. All right, so let's go to operation log. Over here, you'll see whatever has changed on the software. You'll see that I've added a new user. I called it resec. Okay, and then you can just view whatever has been done on the system. The database, you can back up your database. You can initialize the database. This means you clean everything on the software. And then the backup over here, this is if you would like to back up your database as is. Okay, so very important to make sure that you have some backups. Otherwise, you will lose information if you ever delete the software and you do not have any backups that you've made. Right. Let's say, for example, you have now installed the software for the first time and you want to restore this database. You can just click on restore, select one of your backups, right? So one of your database backups. And then after you've done this, it will load. And then you have that backup that you've maybe created in the past. You can always change your database if you'd like, but unfortunately, ZKTeco will not offer any support if you want to change it to something else, to another database, for example, that is not the default database of ZKTimeNet. All right, you can also view or you can set up how often your software should delete the logs on your system. Let's say, for example, you do not have a great PC and you need to make sure that at least all the attendance records are deleted. So at the moment, we have 14 attendance records. I would not know why you want to do this because usually you want your information saved. But for example, you don't have a strong PC and you'd like to delete some information, you can do that as well. All right, so let's go ahead here. We already did everything in personnel. The attendance, I'm going to skip for now. I'm just going to show you how to add the device here. I'm just going to quickly drink some water. Just hold on for me. All right. So now we are on the device tab. You will see on the left-hand side, we have the devices. Okay, so over here, you'll be able to add new devices if you'd like. So click on the add window over here. You'll see that this cancel is now become active. So then you know you're on the add here. You can put in a name. This can be anything. This can be, for example, reception. So you know that this device is in reception. You will just call it whatever you'd like. This can be an F17. It can be the name of the device. That's always helpful. Then you'll put in the IP address of this device. Let's say, for example, it is the default IP settings that we send our devices on. All right, then you'll just select this and put in the default IP settings unless you have already added a different IP setting on your device. Okay, how many devices do you want to add? Just one. And then also the port number by default, you can just leave that on that as well. All right, so once you've done this, you'll just say test connection. Unfortunately, this device is no longer online. So now I will not be able to add this device. But in your case, if it does this as well, please make sure that you are able to ping that device on your command prompt window on your Windows, right? So if you can't ping it, please make sure that you are on the same range or in the same IP range of your device, or make that device's IP range into the same range as your PC's IP range. All right, so very important. Also make sure that your firewall is down because that can also restrict connection as well. All right, so once you've done that, it will connect without fail. So if you can ping your device, it will connect. If you can't ping your device, unfortunately, it will not connect. So you'll need to set up your internet settings as well. Oh, very important. You need to make sure that your PC's IP settings is on static. All right, so if it's not on static, then your PC will change IP ranges every now and then your device will lose connection. All right, so please make sure that your PC's IP address is on static as well. So once you've clicked on test connection, you will see some information here. populate at the bottom. It will tell you what the device model is that you've just added, how many fingerprints is on this device. We had the fingerprint version, right? So we have a few different devices. The older versions of fingerprint version is 9, so number 9. And I think the latest one is 10, maybe 11 or 12 as well. Right, so you'll see the amount of transactions on that device as well, fingerprints, how many palm prints, how many facials, how many employees are loaded on that device. So you'll see all of the information on this device as well. All right, you're able to select the area. I will show you how to create and where to create an area for your device. But if you, let's say, for example, you click on training. Remember on the personnel, when we added the employee, we said where they can clock in and out. So if you select training room for this device, then they can clock in and out on this device, for example. Right, so if you selected that area for the employee as well, then they can clock in on this device. Right. If I click on this, you don't need to know anything. No, you don't. Okay, so the most important part is just this little window over here. Let's click on, if I click on save now, for example, there we go. We have our first device. All right. On the area, let's go to area. So unfortunately, this device will be offline. So just know that this device isn't connected with any device because there's no information over here. But in your case, it will be connected if you set test connection. All right. So once you've said save on the device, you can go ahead and add different areas. Let's say, for example, you want to add a new one. You can just type in a name there. This is just a fictional area. Okay. You can always assign employees on this side as well. So you don't need to do it on the employee on their own. So if you select this over here, it'll mean that these employees that I've just selected are able. Okay, so they are already assigned. Let's quickly go to this one, for example, boardroom. You'll see that Marne, for example, can't add himself or can't clock in on the devices in the boardroom, for example. So I just moved him over. And then on this one here, there should be a few. So I'm just going to select these guys. They can also clock in. So just make sure that they are on the assigned window over here. So they can clock on the devices allocated to this area. Okay, so currently we only have one device and he is allocated to training room. Okay, so the other device, there's no other devices allocated to any one of the other areas, but in your case, you can have multiple areas, maybe call this a building or maybe different room, just so you know where this device is. On the sync data, you'll be able to sync some information. So if I select a area here, you can select it for all of your areas. Okay, so I'm just going to say here, so this is the device, remember? Okay, so if I can just go here, I'm just going to rename this. I'm just going to say F22, for example. I'm going to save that. Then on the sync data, you'll see here, we have our F22 and it's allocated to the training room area. So you'll be able to select between different devices, or you can just select all of them like I have now, for example. And let's say you want to sync the information on the facials, the palms, etc., etc. So you can just go ahead and select everything if you'd like. Otherwise, don't select that, just leave it. If you don't have a device that doesn't have facials, don't select the facials because it will just run forever. Once you click on sync data, a little small window on the right-hand side will open up for you. Let me just make sure you can actually see this. Yes, you can. Okay. So it'll give you some messages here. It will say it's trying to connect to this device. It failed to connect because my device is currently offline. In your case, it will say connect successful, and then it will start doing the sync process. Okay, so to start getting the fingerprint templates, it will get your employee information, etc., etc. It will give you like how many employees you have, how many fingerprints you have, etc., etc. All right, so you can choose what you'd like to sync. Synchronization means that it's pulling the information from the device, making sure everything is the same on the device and your software, and then pushing that device back or pushing that information back to the device. Okay, so very important. Please make sure that when you do this, that everything is, if you have someone loaded on the device with a employee number ID number 1, right, please make sure that they are number 1 on the software as well. Okay, so here's the other option that I told you about in the beginning when we added some device or employees, right? I told you there's two ways of adding employees. The first one is on the software that I showed you already. And the second method is adding them from the device. Okay, so you won't add them on the software, you'll just add them on the device and then pull that information from the device. So how do you do that? You add the device, right? So you install it on the wall and then you add it to the software. So once you've done that, then you just enroll your employees on the device itself. Okay, so you'll have number one, call him someone, number two, call him someone, enroll fingerprints for both of them, etc., etc. And then once you've done with all of your people in your on your site, then you'll just come to this window over here and you'll click on sync. Then it will pull the information from your device and then place it inside of your personnel, etc., etc. Okay, so that's one way of doing it. The USB drive option you have here, this is optional. So if you selected it inside of the system, you can select if you want to import, let's say, transactions or something, or employee photos or something like that from your device. Okay, so your device firstly needs a USB port. Okay, so if your device doesn't have that, then it won't work. Okay, so let's say, for example, your device has a USB port, then you can just put this USB in there, pull the information, and then just place it inside of the photos, etc. Okay, so this is just useful if, let's say, for example, your device is offline, okay, and you're still using it, but it's not connected by a LAN cable or Wi-Fi or anything like that. So you don't have any network here, you just want to use it offline. Then you can always get the transactions as well as the photos via USB. Okay, so you'll have to select the device or the fingerprint algorithm of your device, as well as, does this device have a black and white screen or does it have a color screen? Okay, so we'll just select there whatever you'd like. Once you say okay, it will look some information on the stick or the USB that you plug. Currently, I don't have one plugged in, so it will not show anything for me, but obviously you can import it, refresh it, etc. Short messages. Short messages on the device is a way of broadcasting messages on your device's screen. Okay, so if your device doesn't have a screen, then this will be useless for you. But if your device has a screen and you'd like it to display some messages, for example, you can create that. Okay, so over here we already have a few different that we have already created. The first one is Women's Month that I've created. I said that it should start on the 1st of the 8th, and then it should last for a whole month, displaying this on the screen. Happy Women's Month to all the ladies, right? So on the 1st of the 8th, this will be displayed on the screen of the device, all right? And this will be displayed on which devices? The devices allocated to the training room, boardroom, etc. Okay, so once it's been created, you can't change anything on this. You'll have to delete it to recreate this, for example. So if I click on add here, you'll be able to select, etc., etc. But you can't change what has already been added. Okay, so if you want to change this, the only thing that you can really change is what it's called over here, and then also maybe the message. But you won't be able to change on which devices you want to show this message, etc., etc. Okay. So if you want to add this, you have an option of either doing a public or a personal. So for example, for example, Pam is a personal one, and then the Women's Month is a public message. So there's a difference. The public means that this message gets displayed on the device at all times. Okay, so everyone can see this message. If it is a personal message, right, you'll be able to select certain employees that you want this message to display to. So I'm just going to say here, those three, let's say these three employees are girls. So I'm just going to say save, or women. All right, and then obviously one for Pam. Okay, so Women's Day, for example. So let's say, for example, if you're a woman and you want, when they clock in on this day, you want it to display on the device, Happy Women's Day. Then you'll just put this in over here. And then if Pam tags in, it will display Happy Women's Day. But for example, if Marnu tags in, then obviously it won't show Happy Women's Day for him. Right, so on Pam here, we can also have it for one employee at a time. Let's say, for example, it is her birthday on the 30th, and then on the 31st, it's her birthday, for example. So it will display for one whole day. Let's move it to the 30th. Okay, so let's say, for example, it's her birthday on this day. Then if she clocks in, it will say happy birthday. Okay, so that is the short messages. Let's quickly go to attendance. This is where the real work starts. Okay, so everything we've done up until now is just set up. Let's quickly go ahead and do the attendance. Okay, so at the far left side, you will see something called rules. Over here, you will select what days in the week are weekends. Okay, so let's say, for example, you work on a Saturday, and obviously you will not select a Saturday. Okay, so you only have one day holiday or one day weekend. All right, so Sunday is your weekend, the rest of the days you come in for work. Then at the bottom here, you will be able to select, is this a weekday work time level? Okay, so over here, you will set up your overtime, right? So that is what the OT stands for. For Monday, after you've worked 9 hours, you'll be switched over to a level time 1. Okay, and then obviously after 24 hours, you will be switched over to level 3. Okay, so this is like a pay scale. Let's say, for example, I had this set up over here. I'm going to make this 9 hours on Saturday. Well, let's make this 4 hours here just to explain what it will look like, right? So you'll select, let's say, for example, 4. Okay, so on Saturday, if you've worked more than 4 hours, you will be moved over to overtime 2. Okay, and then if you've worked more than 6 hours on that day, for example, so 2 hours between that, then you'll be moved over to overtime level 2. Right, so if you've worked more than 4 hours, you'll be on level 1. If you've worked more than 6 hours now on Saturday, you'll be moved over to level 2. And then level 3, for example, if you've worked more than 8 hours on Saturday. So over here, it will now display like this on your report. So let's say, for example, someone works more than 4 hours on a Saturday, they will get some overtime 1. Then if they work more than 6, overtime 2, and then obviously overtime 3 if someone worked more than 8 hours on a Saturday. Obviously, you will need to know what each overtime level means. Okay, so let's say, for example, overtime level 2, you pay more for them. It's like a level up in your pay scale. All right, so let's say, for example, 1.5 or something salary rate, and then number 3, for example, is maybe 3 times your salary, stuff like that. Okay, so you can set it up. Otherwise, I think in South Africa, we only really use from one standard overtime. So you'll start at 9 and then you'll work up until 24 hours. Okay, so this is just one way of doing it. Let's quickly go to the holiday. You can set up holidays if you'd like. Okay, so you'll click on add here. You'll see that we already have a few different holidays. We have one New Year's, Christmas, Boxing Day, test, etc., etc. Okay, so if you click on add, you'll be able to name your holiday something. Okay, so I'm just going to click on cancel here. You can name your holiday something. You can select if you want them to work on this holiday. If they work on this test, then you'll just select this. And then obviously you'll select the overtime. So I did not select any overtime. So as soon as they come in to work on this day, they will start receiving overtime level 3. Okay, so it will go from 1, 2, and 3. Because all of them are 0, then obviously you will land on number 3. Okay, so is this holiday only once, or does it cycle by a fixed date? If you select the fixed date here, then it will mean every 5th of October, it will be a holiday for 2 days. If you select the cycle by a fixed day, then over here you can select, okay, every first Sunday, for example, it will start to create this. Okay, so it'll have your test holiday, right? And then obviously you can select here how many times or how many days should this holiday be. Okay, so how long should this last for? Right, on the advanced, not really something that you need to worry about. Work type stats, you don't need to worry about. Timetable, there we go. This one is the one that you need to work on. All right, so when you want to set up a timetable, you have an option of two timetables that you can set up. You can either have a flexible one. So I've created this one, I've called it Flex. Let's actually call it flexible. Let's save it now. All right, so flexible, and then obviously the default or the regular. Okay, so I'm just going to save this. Okay, so you can either work on a flexible one or a regular. So how do you add a flexible or a regular? You have an option here of either selecting either two. So the difference between the two, I'll just flick through this as well. The difference between the two is your flexible does not have any breaks allocated to it. So your regular has a break, but your flexible does not have any breaks allocated to it. Okay, then obviously on the general as well, flexible, you cannot have a few different options here, for example. So what do you use a flexible timetable for? Okay, so the flexible timetable is usually used for contract workers, someone that you don't really care of how long or when they come in and out, they should just work a certain amount of minutes within that day. Right, so if you select 480 minutes here, then this, unfortunately, this is minutes. You can't have this in hours. Okay, so you'll need to know how long 480 minutes is. I think it's 5 hours or so, 5 or 4 hours. You'll select how long they should work for that day. So if they, let's say, for example, they came in at 8 and they left at 10, they came back and they left again, for example, then it will display how long they have worked. Okay, so very important, if you have selected this used first check-in and last checkout only, it means that, let's say, for example, they left for the whole day, but then they came back and clocked in very, very late, then it will just calculate from the first time they clocked in to the last time. So it would say that they worked far more than, for example, 418 minutes. But if you do not select this, then they have to make sure that they come in and out. Make sure it's a clock in and a clock out, and then you'll be able to select or see how long they've actually worked. Right, so just make sure that you do not select this for this flexible here. On the regular timetable, we have a few different options. You can select when your employees should clock in or check in every day, right? So should they check in at 8? So they should be working from 8 and they should work until 5. Okay, you can give it a color if you'd like. You can just select there, choose a color. Please don't leave it on white because that will just create some confusion, as well as the flexible. All right, and then over here, the punch from and the punch to is very, very important. Okay. So this means that they should start working from 8 to 5, but they can start punching or clock in from when can they start clocking in and out. All right, so if you select 5 o'clock, then they can start clocking in at 5. Let me put it on 3 o'clock just to be safe. Right, so if you select the punch from at 3 o'clock, 3 a.m., then it means that before 3 a.m., no one can clock in. Okay, so if someone clocks in before 3 a.m., then unfortunately you will not receive that clock in. Okay, so you won't see that clock in. So you need to make sure that they can start punching in from a very early time within the day to make sure that if they clock in before their check-in time, which is 8 o'clock, then you'll receive or you'll see that clock in. Okay, so I'm just putting this at 3 o'clock. So let's say, for example, if someone clocked in at 5 a.m., then I will still see that clock in. Okay, but if they clocked in at 2 o'clock, I will not be able to see that clock in. All right. Then the clock out or the punch to time, I've just set this just before midnight. This will just allow me that if someone works very late or they want to work overtime, for example, they can then clock out just before midnight, and I will see that clock out as well. All right, so the same concept with the punch from It's just the vice versa for the punch 2. All right, so over here we have an option to allow late. You will then be able to select or say how long do you want to allow late in. So let's say, for example, someone is late in the morning. How long do you want them to be not shown as absent or late or whatever? So if you select 15 minutes over here, they can be late with 15 minutes every morning. Okay, and they won't be shown as late. If you select early out by 5 minutes, it means that they can start leaving 5 to 5. If you move this to 10, it will be 10 to 5. All right, so they can start clocking out 10 to 5. They will still be shown as they're leaving on time. Right, late in exceed. So the reason I did not select this, all right, is I do not want them to be shown as absence. Okay, so you can also have, let's say, for example, if someone did not, if they did not check in the day, then obviously they will be counted as absent, but I'm not going to select this because let's say, for example, they did not check in, but they check out for that day. The system will just mark them as absent, but let's not choose that. So let's say these two options here, if they are later than 20 minutes, for example, they should be marked as absent, yes or no. If they're 6 minutes, for example, let's make this 16 minutes or 15 minutes. Then they will be marked as absent. Okay, so if you have them selected, it will count, but even if you have some values in there and you do not select this, then they won't count. All right. So yeah, I'm not going to select them because that is just a little bit harsh for me. Okay, you can also enable the overtime for this timetable. Where do you get the overtime from? Remember in rule when we set up our overtime. Okay, so you can set up if this timetable should listen to your rules. Okay, so if you select that, then this timetable will receive overtime if they work more than 9 hours, for example. Early in exceeds. Okay, so let's say, for example, someone came at 3 a.m. How do you want that to display on your reports? Do you just want them to show that they came in early, but they only worked for 9 hours that day? Then you will not select this. But let's say you select it and you put in here 30 minutes. That means they have, when they clock in, they should be 30 minutes or 8 at least to have those minutes allocated to their working time. So if they clock in at 3 a.m., I mean, they will have a few hours added to their working time. That will then allocate it to the overtime once they reach 9 hours. All right, so late out also, if you select this and you put in here 25 minutes, it means that if someone works overtime for that day, that they will have to work more than 25 minutes before they can actually start receiving overtime. Okay, so let's say, for example, they came in at 8 and they left at 20 past 5, then unfortunately you will not receive any overtime for that because you need to work at least more than 25 minutes. All right, then obviously also these same functions over here. If you use the first check-in and last checkout only, it will mean that it will take the first check, doesn't matter if it is a checkout. So let's say, for example, your device can only have one check, or you don't want your employees to select different states, then you'll select then select this option over here. This is just easier. Okay, so what this does is it will take your first clock, doesn't matter if it's an in or an out, and then it will take your last one and it will allocate the time that between those times, right? So it will work out the time that you worked or something. So it will take the times between that times and it will tell you, listen, you worked 9 hours. Okay. This has one fault in it. So let's, for example, you left for break, okay, and you came back very late, for example, and then you clock out. Then it will tell you worked for 9 hours. All right, so very important. If you have this unselected, then you need to make sure that your clocks are correct. Okay, so in the morning, there should be check-ins. In the afternoons, there should be a check-out. So this will just make it more accurate. But if you have just one device, I will just recommend using this. Okay. On the regular, you are able to select different breaks to allocate to a, let's say, for example, a timetable. How do you do that? First, you need to set up some breaks. So if I put in here, I'm going to say break here. Did I actually not type that? There we go, break. All right. And I want this break to be an auto deduct. So it should automatically deduct from their working times. Let's select here. I'm going to make this 2 o'clock. And then it should be 1 hour break time. All right, so I want this to be auto deduct. Okay, so now I have an auto deduct here. And then this tea time, for example, this is not auto deduct. This is based on punch. Okay, so very important. They need to select the break in and break out on your device. Otherwise, they will not receive this break. Okay. So if you have this selected, you are able to say, listen, they can take their tea time anywhere between 10 and 11, even though they only have 30 minutes. That means that they have 30 minutes anywhere between 10 and 11. And then also you are able to calculate the employee's unbreak time as working hours. If you have this selected, then let's say, for example, they did not take their lunch or their tea time, then it will allocate this 30 minutes to their working time. Okay. You're also able to say you don't want this, right? So then you'll just unselect that. Okay. So if they don't take their tea time, then unfortunately they've lost those 30 minutes there. If their break exceeds a certain amount of minutes, do you want them to show as late in or absent or early out? You can have that selected, whatever you'd like. Okay, so this is just the 3 breaks over here. If you want to select a break and want it to apply to a certain timetable, then you'll just select the breaks that you want to display or to count towards this timetable, for example. Okay, so once you've set up your timetables, then we can actually go to shift here. And on the shift, we can actually call this one something crazy. So I'm just going to delete this. Yes, I want to delete it. All right, so you'll see here we have 3 different shifts. We have a flexible one, we have a default shift. Okay, you can also mix the shifts, one shift here, and then mix the different timetables. You can pull this timetable to anywhere. It'll display on the correct times. So you can have it a mix, but you can't have it on the same day. So you can't have a green and a red on the same day. It will replace, unfortunately, it will replace it. Okay, so just note that is not possible. All right, so shifts that I have already created here. I have one flexible as one default as well. Okay, very important. It needs a name. Then also the start date is very, very, very important. All right, so please make sure that your start date for your shifts should be in the past. Okay, so this one, for example, started in 2014. This is a great example. Please make sure that you put your starting date of your shift far in the past. Otherwise, if you have it selected for today, then it will mean that if someone clocked in yesterday and your shift only started today, then you won't see the clocks from yesterday. Okay, so please make sure that you set this in the past, even before you received your clocks, for example. So 2014 is a great day that you can actually select it. Okay, you'll see here, you're also able to select your cycle type. Okay, so let's say, for example, every 2 weeks, you want this to, I'm going to click on add here, and I'm going to make this cycle for 2 weeks. Okay, so it will start today. Let's actually move it to the Monday over here, for example. And the shift started on Monday. I'm going to move this in here. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Okay, so this is week 1. Okay, and then for week 2, I'm just going to move this down. You'll see here, it will start on Monday again. There we go, there we go. Thursday and then Friday. Okay. So now you see that I have 2 weeks. So I'm just going to put it 2 just so I'll know what that is. Okay, so this will just mean once we are done with week 1, it will then go on to week 2. And then once you are done with week 2, it will start again on week 1. So let's say, for example, you worked until you're done with week 2, for example, then you'll just start at 1 again. All right, so it will cycle every 2 weeks. You have an option here between weeks or days. If you want the third day to be day 1 again, then you can just select here. Then it will start with Monday is your one timetable, Tuesday is your other one, for example, then Wednesday is day 1 again, then Thursday is day 2, Friday is day 1, etc., etc. I'm just going to select a week here and we'll just see here. Yes, okay. So just make sure that you have this start date in the past, the schedule. Very important, do not touch this smart management or the smart shift management. Please stay away. Okay, then you'll see your shifts on the left-hand side. If I have this selected, it will display everyone that works on those shifts. Okay, so you'll see here, if you're allocated to a certain department, right? So you have 2 ways of adding this. I've already added this by department. That just means that they work either in internal marketing or sales or support. Right, so everyone working in support, okay, will then receive a different schedule. Okay, everyone working in sales will then receive a schedule depending on what you've set here, and then also in internal marketing. Okay, so how do you do this? Right, so very important. The start date, again, please put this in the past, very, very far in the past. I'm just going to put this for last year, the 1st of October. And I do not want to set a end date because I want this schedule to last forever. So I'm just going to select they start working on the shift number 2. Okay, so the 2-week cycle one here. And I want to apply this to a certain person. I don't want to apply this to a marketing, for example. I just want to apply this. I see here anyone is not on 1. So I'm just going to say confirm here, and I'm going to say confirm. Then you will see I have anyone that works in marketing, right? And he starts on the shift on the 1st of October. Okay, you can always delete this. And let's do this for the whole department. Okay, so I'm just going to select marketing here. So everyone in marketing works on number 2 now. So you'll see here, anyone, he works in marketing, he's now on number 2, and he started working on the 1st of October. Okay, you'll be working on this shift until the end of time. This one over here is a option here. So I did not select this, or I did not unselect this. So this shift will only last from the 8th of October until the last day of December. Right, so number W here works on this shift for that amount of time. Right, so you can either have it selected either to an employee or for the whole department. So once you've done this, then you'll be able to select the schedule here as well. So I'll just show you anyone's schedule. So anyone works on this schedule now. It started on the 1st. The reason why the first few days is off is because that the shift started on the 11th. Okay. So that's why, even though he started working on the shift before the shift actually started, this will now be displayed like this. W here, for example, works on the 1A, works on this one. Pam Halpert also works on that one. And then Margaret works on this one, for example. Okay. So you'll see here, we have 2 things here called test. This is just the holiday that I've created. So I had one holiday that I called test, and this is that holiday displayed over here. You can always select, let's say, for example, anyone here. If it says off, it means that they don't work on those days. But let's say if I leave it on the day off and I assign this, then let me just select this here. They will then be on off. If I select this day and I select clear, it will be back on that day. Let's put this on a normal work here, and then I can select all between my timetables. I have 2 timetables. So if I had more, then I can just select that one there, for example, and I want over here. So let's say for this employee, this is just temporary, but Thursday, yesterday, you had to work on this timetable. Next week, Thursday, you'll work on a different timetable. And then for this one here again, and there we go. So this is just temporary. You can do this. I'm just going to clear this here, for example, and there we go. We are back. All right. So very, very important. You can do that as well. The exception assigned, same concept. Just you're able to set if this person was sick today or not. This was a sick leave or it was a vacation or anything like that. I'm just going to assign here for the total day. I'm just going to assign that person to here, and they are sick for the whole day. Okay, so that's just as easy as that. Otherwise, if you don't select this, you'll have to select how long they were actually gone. So over here, for example, they were sick for 2 hours. Okay, so you can have that as well. That's also an option here. I'm going to just clear this here as well. Then lastly, actions. Over here, you'll be able to see all of your transactions. If you don't transactions here, just make sure that you get all of the transactions from your device. Okay, so if you don't get it from the device, then obviously not receive any transactions here. I'm just going to select all of the transactions that I've created for Marne was on the 6th and then the 7th. All right, so you'll see here I've check in, check out, out, back, out. All right, so I have a few checks for Marne. If you don't see any reports or any transactions, it means that you did not get the transactions from your device. Okay, so very important. Once you've done everything correctly, you've set up everything, you'll be able to set or calculate for your employees. Okay, so let's say, for example, you want to pull a report from the 1st of October until today. I'm going to calculate this, then it will get all of the dates from the 1st to today. It will tell you how many times that this person actually came in for work. He came in the 6th, the 7th here. Let's add some records here so you can do this manually. So I'm just going to say modify record. This is a manual punch. I have Marne selected over here, the 14th. What is the time that they came into work? I'm going to say 8 o'clock again. This was a check-in, and I'm going to say save. I'm going to say add here, and I'm going to say check out, and this is 17, and I'm going to say save. So now I have 2 checks, manual checks, check in, check out on the same day, 8 to 5, and I'm just going to say save again just to make sure, and I'm going to recalculate, and there we go. We have some times that I've actually came into work yesterday. All right, so there we go. We have a few different hours that I've already worked. So my required working hours was 450 minutes, but I worked 480 minutes. Okay, so I have a few minutes overtime, 30 minutes overtime. And now once you've done the calculate, so the reason why you calculate is, let's say, for example, you change some information on your timetable or shift, and you calculate and you make sure that you get all of that information, and your system will then show your information correctly. If you don't calculate, it might not show correctly. So very important. Once you've done this, then you can go to reports. I just want to see the monthly schedule. So the monthly schedule here is great if you want to see when they should actually work. So I'm just going to say search here, and then you'll see here Marnu needs to work the 1st of the Friday, and then he had 2 days off, 1 day, 2 days holiday, 2 days work off, weekend off, etc., etc. So you can see here. So the reason why this is off and this one is weekend off is because, remember, we work on Saturdays. I never put a weekend on the Saturday, okay? But the shift only goes from Monday to Friday. So that's why this is a little bit different. You can always, I don't think you can print this out. Let's just select this here. You'll see that this is just for one person. Okay, so it doesn't look like you can actually export this, but you can just view this on the software, etc., etc. So you can either have for multiple users underneath each other, or if you just wanted to display one person's schedule, it'll display one person's schedule as is. All right, so that's one way of doing it. Let's quickly go to reports. So once you've done the calculation on attendance. Then you can come to reports. Let's go to the attendance report here. I'm going to pull a, let me see here, monthly statement report. I'm just going to click on that. I know you won't be able to see this, so I'm just selecting this as well. Just waiting for it to come up. There we go. I'll select this as well. So this is what the report looks like at the end. Right, so I calculated for the first until today, remember, and then you'll see here all of the days for just Marnu. I think it's just for Marnu. No, it's not. It's for everyone in the company. So you can either have a report for everyone in the company, or you can pull it for just one person. I'll show you how to do that as well. But let's say, for example, you want to pull a report for everyone in the company from the first until today. Then you'll see here the times that they had break. So this guy had an hour break. Over here, he had an hour break again. He was required to work 7 hours, 30 minutes. He worked 8 hours, and this is just the round. So the round work is just a round off. I would not recommend looking at this. This is just, sometimes it shows incorrectly because it's from China. So it will show you how long they've actually worked, how many times they were absent within this time. So if you would like a weekly report, I mean, you can always just calculate for a week instead. So you'll just go here, for example. I'll just select everyone and I'll calculate from the 11th until today. I'm going to search, or no, calculate. I need to calculate, not search. My bad. Calculate from the 11th, calculate until today for everyone. There we go. Then if I go to reports, attendance report, let's just select one person, custom employee, only for Marne, for example, because that's the only one I want, monthly statement. Then you'll see from the 11th until today, this is a weekly report. Okay, so you'll see here, I only came in once. This was the required hours that I need to work. I worked 8 hours. And there we go. This is the amount of hours that I've worked. So this is basically it. And obviously, when you pull reports and you had a logo, then your logo will display here at the top, but I did not have a logo. So unfortunately, that will not be displayed. And then also, if you had something approved or checked by, then this will also be shown here as well. All right. So it will show you the time that you pull the reports, etc., etc. So this is just some reports that you can maybe pull. Transactions report. Oh no, you weren't able to see that. Oh, okay, my bad. But you are able to select just for one person, for example. Then also transactions, attendance, absence reports, etc., etc. So you're free to choose any one of these following reports. You can also create your own reports by clicking on this add button over here. If you click on that, a new window will pop open and you'll be able to create your own reports. I'm not going to do training on that, but you are always more than welcome to have a look at this as well. So it looks like this, and then you can just create your own reports, etc., etc. Okay, so that is it for today. Thank you very much, everyone that joined. I'm going to stop the recording here. Let me stop the recording.